At the turn of the 20th century, America was a land of limitless possibility. The skyline rose with steel and ambition, bold, daring, and unstoppable. Fueled by the American dream, small-town entrepreneurs built companies that reshaped industries and uplifted their communities. Innovation became the heartbeat of our nation. In 1912, local business leaders united with a shared purpose: to create a single voice dedicated to defending free enterprise, empowering businesses to serve people, provide solutions, and strengthen society. That voice became the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, committed to advancing economic freedom and opportunity for every American. For over a century, we've been a driving force at the crossroads of progress, shattering barriers, fueling growth, and creating opportunities for people building better lives. We don't just support business, we ignite it. From local startups to global enterprises, we create an environment where potential thrives, empowering communities, leaders, and creators to transform bold ideas into lasting impact. Working with and for a local, national, and global federation of partners, we fight for American businesses in the courts, in state capitals, in Washington, and on the world stage. Steadfast in our principles, unwavering in our resolve, uncompromising in doing what's right. This is America's story, written with vision, bound by conviction, illustrated through courage, and enriched by the hard work of everyday people, local business owners, and global visionaries who continue to define us. It's an enduring legacy of strength, determination, and shared ambition. One we proudly build upon as we work to write the next chapter of our nation's story. Join us. Together, let's build a future of growth and opportunity for the pursuit.
I'm Barbara Thau, Editorial Director of Features for Co. by U.S. Chamber of Commerce. I'm so glad to be with you today for this episode of C-Suite to Main Street. First up, I want to thank our sponsors, Dell, Oracle, and Square. We're so grateful for your partnership in this series. So with that, I'm delighted to welcome Gail Becker, who founded CAULIPOWER in 2017 and built it into a $100 million healthy frozen food business in its first 5 years, and she had zero food industry expertise. I'm so happy to be with you, Gail. Welcome.
Thank you so much. So happy to be with you as well.
So let's get right into it. So back in 2016, you were searching for gluten-free food options for your two boys with celiac disease. Supermarkets were coming up short, right? And so you started to make this is a tongue twister, cauliflower pizza crusts at home, which tasted good but took forever to make. And then came the aha moment when you thought, okay, there's a need for pre-made, convenient cauliflower pizza crust. That inspired the launch of CAULIPOWER. And this is 2017. Now, I wanted to just zero in on that first year, because in that first year, you surpassed startup trends in that you booked 5 million in sales, right? You broke into Whole Foods, and you also in a frozen food business that was, full of big giant brands. What I have to ask you, what did you do? What were the critical things you did to go from this germ of an idea to that standing in that first year?
Well, I started the business in 2016, and I wish I could say to your point, that I made cauliflower crust pizzas all the time. I didn't. I made it one time. And
I should interrupt you and say, which I forgot to say, you had no food industry experience.
no food experience.
Not a
I
minute
just
of
bought,
it. Okay.
not a minute, bought it, cooked it, and ate it just like everyone else. And I made it one time, and I thought, wow, this is okay, but who's got 90 minutes to spend making a pizza crust after you get home from a full day of work? And what was so interesting to me is that, when I found that recipe, there was actually 569,000 recipes on the internet that day. I just picked a random one
For pizza
for
crust?
cauliflower pizza crust.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
from from scratch. And what was so interesting to me and sort of gets at part of that aha moment was, wow, people are so desperate for a better version of pizza that they were resorting to spending 90 minutes making it themselves. Wow, that's what you call an idea waiting in plain sight. Now, I when I took a look around what was hiding in the what was then at in the frozen aisle, I very much thought, well, someone's going to do something about this, but no one ever did. And in many ways, yes, I was trying to solve a problem for myself, but I was also trying to, also got really tired of waiting. And that was, that combined with the fact that my father had just passed away, that I was very unsatisfied in my corporate life. Those 3 things led to the realization, "Hmm, maybe I could do this." And that's when I left my job in 2016 and set on the journey to begin this company, which, as you said, launched in, February of 2017.
So that first big leap, what how did you make that first big leap? I know you've said that you made the most expensive, I think was watching something where it was hilarious, with the most expensive sample ever, and
Well,
then and then can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, I guess just
yeah.
to demystify it for people, like, what
Yeah, of
not
course.
to but
Well,
yeah,
I joke saying it's the most expensive sample ever because that was, in a manufacturing facility.
yeah.
You can't really make something at home and sell it to a store. That's not how it works. You need a proof of concept. And when I set upon the journey of trying to find a pizza manufacturer in the United States who would make a crust out of cauliflower, something that had never been done before, they looked at me like I had 3 eyes. And most of them turned me down. And so I think, so how did I find those manufacturers? I hired consultants. I hired consultants to teach me about the business, help me find a manufacturer, help me understand how it works, help me really know the ecosystem that I was diving into. And, that's really the great thing about this country. And, certainly a lot of your listeners, you can hire people to teach you just about anything. And so that's what I did. I was like a sponge. And, quite frankly, I still am.
And that's the big takeaway, and then that led to can we talk a little bit about how you broke into Whole Foods and what you did you did it yourself essentially, right?
So Whole Foods has this wonderful program. If any of your listeners are food entrepreneurs, they have this wonderful program where you can pitch your item to your local region, wherever you live. At the time, I lived in Southern California.
Anybody
So what
can.
anybody can.
Okay.
So I took my, box of 4 sample frozen pizzas that were made, in this facility. And I put them in a styrofoam container with dry ice. And, I walked into the regional headquarters of Whole Foods. And I like to joke it was very much like dropping off your baby at daycare. It's like your life is in that box. And, you can't get a meeting. No one will answer your emails. No one will answer the phone. You drop it off with the receptionist. And, I looked her in the eye and I remember saying, please take good care of them. And Then about 2.5 weeks later, I got a note, an email from, the buyer at Whole Foods in the SoPac region who said, "We tried your pizzas. We love them. We're going to bring them into 30 stores." And, my heart stopped. I still remember where I was. I was actually in Washington, D.C., having attended an entrepreneurs summit that a friend of mine was putting on. And I was in a Starbucks, and it was one of those moments you never forget.
Absolutely, and pivotal to that is finding the people who know what you don't know, and then finding this th that doing it yourself because you could do it
Yeah.
yourself and you found out. Um, can we talk about your dad for a second?
Yeah, of course. My favorite
Is
subject.
it Martin was
Martin. Yes,
Martin
Martin.
Becker.
Thank you.
So,
Mhm.
your dad was a small business owner, right?
Mhm.
He
Mhm.
was a veteran.
Mhm.
He also you he is a kind of your business is sort of a business built on love a little bit because
Mhm.
the house that he left you and you sold, you used that money to launch a business. He was a
Uh-huh.
Holocaust survivor, small business owner, and veteran, Holocaust survivor as my dad was too. Shout out
Oh,
shout out
okay.
to
Yes.
shout outs to our dad.
Yeah. Yeah, there's
And
there's something fearless about them, which I think makes them very good entrepreneurs.
I wanted to ask you, what is his imprint on the
Mm.
business, how you run it, and its success?
One of the things that so when my dad owned his store on Clement Street in San Francisco, starting at 5 years old, I used to ring the cash register and I would make $20 a day plus lunch. And it was such a good perch from which to watch small business in real time. And what I noticed, even though I actually didn't draw upon it until many years later, but what I definitely noted was how my dad knew the customers and he would talk to them and he would understand their needs and understand what they were looking for. And he had relationships with them and it really drove him. He also, and as part of his entrepreneurship, he would sell, like dented cans of food to hotels and restaurants around San Francisco. And I would go with him. I didn't know they were sales calls at the time, but I always took note of how he would talk to the busboys. He would talk to the cooks. He spoke 7 languages, even though
Wow.
he never went to high school. And it was something that, he wanted to understand how people were using the products. What issues did they have? What did they want more of? And that's how, even though he never went to college, he knew so well the core tenets of business. And he looked out for the consumer. And I like to think that he passed along that to me. I think about our consumer all the time. It's what caused me to start the business. It's what caused me to go on in times when I thought I couldn't. And it's what drives me today.
And you created a whole new product category in the frozen food
Mhm.
aisle, and you're like the
Yep.
little engine that could, you know?
Nobody told me I couldn't.
Exactly, and but the idea is but I wanna you also have an interesting background in that you were marketing executive, you were, um,
Mhm.
health and hu the director of communications, right, for
Yep.
Health and Human
Health and
Services,
Human Services.
and
Yep.
then also for a VP of communications for Warner Brothers. What about that expertise? Because I wanna this is what's interesting about your business, many things, but one of which is you created this buzz, this healthy food buzz in the grocery aisle amid giants, big
Mhm.
food brands. How did you, as a small startup, break through the noise and create that buzz, create that excitement for this product that our audience could benefit from?
Well, it's interesting, even though I didn't have any food experience and a lot of entrepreneurs enter industries that they don't necessarily came from or spent years in. Um, but uh I knew a thing or two about marketing. Maybe other entrepreneurs know a thing or two about finance or operations or supply chain or sales. But for me, it was marketing. And so that's what I led with. And what's interesting is, having worked at an agency where we had lots of clients from all different industries, and as someone who works at an agency, you give your counsel, and quite frankly, sometimes they take it and sometimes they don't. And I remember filing like things away and thinking, wow, when I start my own company, I can take my own advice. And that was really empowering. Now, I learned a lot what not to do because I also had a bird's eye view into
Yeah.
different leadership of companies and how some failed and how some succeeded.
Yeah.
But I knew that I could finally listen to that inner voice that, quite frankly, not every client used to listen to.
What was one thing, if you had to zero in on in the terms of the marketing? Marketing is such a gigantic, and
Yeah.
what is it one thing that really helped you break through the noise and become this and create a new product category marketing wise, that the Gail thing, what did Gail bring in that area?
hmm Well, I mean, look, you're right in that not every food or not every innovation period is an entirely new category. So we were
Absolutely.
creating something that had never been done before. So there was real news value just in that. Like, what do you mean make it pizza out of cauliflower? So that provided news in and of itself. But just to give a really simple example, if your listeners have seen us in the grocery store, they will know that we have these, funny memes on the front of our boxes. And I remember when we were creating our boxes, our packaging for the very first time, and I said, you know, I would love to make people smile in the freezer aisle. And what? Who smiles,
I'm smiling at
walking
the
down the
yeah.
freezer aisle? No one, and that's the point. So I said, let's put funny, eye-catching memes on the front, and people will take Instagram pictures with them, and
Yes.
with the boxes, and that will help spread the word. Honestly, people thought I was crazy because it really hadn't been done before.
Yeah.
And so now, and that has continued today. It was a bit of a risk, but the great thing about being an entrepreneur is, of course, you're going to take a risk. You don't have anything. You don't. You're creating something that didn't exist. So what have you got to lose?
What, so just one, can you give me an example of one of those funny memes?
We launched with one, it said, pizza, and we still use it today, pizza, your favorite vegetable.
Where
A very popular one is our white pizza, which, if someone hasn't tried it, I highly encourage you to, run, don't walk, because it's really quite good. And on the meme on that box is, tomatoes have left the chat because it's a white
well,
pizza.
it's humor, it's buzz, and it's also kind of pointing to what your distinction is at the same time, right?
Yeah,
It's sort of saying it's saying something is tasty that's not considered necessarily tasty vegetables, right?
yeah.
But without
Well,
saying
I
it,
think so, but yes,
yeah,
yes,
I like that,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
so speaking of tasty and flavors, um, so in February you launched Power, once again tongue twister for me, pickle pizza, and
Or dill pickle
the
pizza, yeah.
dill pickle pizza, and I'm
Mhm.
wondering what's the secret to product innovation, product development that makes sure that is, because you were going by what's trending that aligns with both food trends but also consumer tastes. What's important to that?
Yeah, well, today, like, we didn't always have this but
Okay,
today we have a lot of data,
good.
and a lot of big companies have a lot of data, and we have a lot of consumer data. We have a lot of specific CAULIPOWER consumer data, and we also have the most incredibly generous consumers who always talk to us and tell us what they like and what they don't like. And we see what kinds of things they're consuming and sharing on social media and so forth. So, we noted that dill pickle flavors were trending quite quite significantly. And I remember reading this article about how dill pickles were a top choice of pizza toppings at pizzerias, at pizza restaurants.
Who would have thought?
But it had never been done in frozen. So that pizza took about 2 years to bring to market. It's phenomenal.
How's it
It's
doing?
fun. It's doing very well. It's not in wide distribution. It started as quite yet. It started as a exclusive in Whole Foods, so anyone who's listening can certainly get it there. But it's broadening out now. But once people try it, they're definitely
They're
hooked.
they're hooked. You said when I read that no one would have hired you to be the founder of CAULIPOWER, which is pretty funny. But your corporate culture, you've have a mix of seasoned food executives alongside people who never were in the business, who wanted a career change like you did, and it's been a surprise success, and there's been some surprising gains in that amalgam. What can you give me an example of one gain that came from
Sure.
that?
Sure. We do have a good mix. And I think, a lot of people are just drawn to the startup culture. So we had lots of people in the beginning who had never worked at a startup, who wanted to work at a startup. And not as many food executives, though some who wanted to trade big food for a smaller company and help it grow. Um, I would say probably my most obvious example, and she's tremendous, is a woman who joined the team about 6 years ago, and she was a hairdresser, and she had never worked at a startup. That's all she had really done. And there was something about her in the interview process that I just loved. And I think it was the fact that, she reminded me of me a little bit. She wanted to turn her life upside down. She wanted to try something new. She wanted to challenge herself. She was a quick learner and smart as, heck, as she was then, and certainly as well now. And so I hired her, took a chance. I hired her, one of the best hires I've ever made, and she's with me today. And my goodness, I don't know what I would do without her.
That's terrific. Yeah, so people just bring these other disciplines, insights that we wouldn't necessarily see on the just by looking on the
Eh,
surface.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously, today we're a bigger company. We have people that come from all types of places. We have people that come from big food. We have people that come from, other startups. We have everyone in between, and we still have people who, just wanted to change their lives, and it's just a wonderful mix of brilliance. I always say we have the best team in the business.
Now, I know that there have been tough times, and
Mm-hmm.
I know you've said that several times you thought the business would go out of business, and but you
Mm-hmm.
rebounded. I'd
Mm-hmm.
love for you to just take us back to one of those tough times, and in practical terms, how did you rebound? What were the learnings from that our audience could benefit from? One
Um,
comes to mind.
yeah, the toughest time for the business, no question, not the only tough time, but the toughest time, was during COVID. Not only did we have to take the business online overnight, but we were an essential business. So our work got 10 times more complicated, and there was no rule book. It's not like there was no rule book on how to run a food company during a global pandemic. And everything from, my goodness, how do you get trucks when they're all being used to toilet paper, to nobody's buying better for you food. People are only buying, macaroni and cheese or triple stuffed pepperoni. No one's buying better for you foods during that time, we had 50 new brand competitors from 17 different brands enter the market at the same time, and the retailers all had brought them in because they all thought that they would perform like CAULIPOWER. On top of all that, we had run out of money. So we were literally running on fumes. And I did not think that we were going to get out. But um, we persevered. I think one sort of thing to think about for other entrepreneurs out there is a bit of a mind shift. So, as I said, there was no rule book on how to run a food business during a global pandemic. But you know what that meant? That meant that even the big corporate Goliaths like Nestle or Conagra, they didn't have a rule book either. And for the very first time, we were on equal footing because we were all trying to navigate it. And so we used that time as a time of huge innovation for us. Not necessarily in our food, although we still maintained our pipeline at the time, but in the way that we got products from point A to point B, the way that we communicated with our retailers, the fact that we were young and malleable and could turn on a dime really helped us in that time of crisis. And in fact, we had one of the highest supply fulfillment rates in the industry.
And so you really got into how to operationalize the business and just streamline operations, it sounds like,
Mhm,
during that
mhm.
time. In
Yeah.
innovation. And what was the biggest thing you did there in terms of why did you get to have that result with supply chain so when you were just starting out? What did you do? What's the one thing you did that you got that result?
I think it's funny during that time, we were smaller, but operated like a family. And when you're at a small business, everybody has a stake in the success. And for the first year of COVID, for every weekday, 5 days a week, for 365 days, I wrote a note to the staff because we were all at home for the very first time and everybody was scared and no one knew which way was up and people were getting sick. And sometimes the notes would be about the business. Sometimes they would be about a joke or a meme. Sometimes it would be a video. Sometimes it would be something serious. But it was always something that really tied us together and made us really understand that this business was going to succeed only based on every member of the team succeeding. So there was a level of cognizance and support for each other that I don't think I've never seen in all my years in business. It was it was a horrible time, it was a
Yeah.
tragic time, but that's where the sparks of necessity and opportunity and innovation lie.
So true. And the continuity of connection.
Mhm.
Um, what makes a good day for you running Collie Power and why?
Mm. Well,
Because the
yeah. Well, I did hire a CEO about a year ago. So,
That's right.
so he gets to run it on a day-to-day basis. But I would say a good day for the business today is I go on a lot of sales calls. I love going on sales calls. No one can sell a product like a founder. And or that's what people tell me. And so I go on a lot of sales calls. We have a great sales meeting. That's a great day. We have a great team meeting. That's a great day. I get to go to an event and either talk about entrepreneurialism or or hand out samples of our pizza. That's a great day. Um, it's after almost 9 years for me. That's where I find my joy today.
The interaction and getting the feedback.
I do. Yes.
Yeah. And in terms of what's next for you all, I know you're talking about disrupting another food category. Can you give us a hint?
Um, I can tell you it is another category that is ripe for innovation, much like
Mm.
the pizza category was when we first started. So we're very excited. Hopefully we'll see some in late 25 24 and then or in early 25.
So early, you mean late 25, early 26?
Yes, sorry. Yes,
I know
that's
the years
exactly
are
what I
going
mean.
so fast, it's scary.
Yes, that's
It's
exactly what I mean.
frightening. It's
Sorry.
frightening
Oh
that my
gosh.
my I'm doing the same thing. My final question, what do you wish you had known when you launched Cauliflower Power that you know now be it a mindset, be it a tool, a strategy that would benefit our audience that you know now?
Um, hire more lawyers. uh,
Interesting.
yeah, hire more lawyers. Uh,
Why?
right. It's uh, it's tough when you're building a business, and I think when you're starting out, you sort of cobble everything together, right? You sort of you put the packaging together in your living room, or you start out small, or it's just kind of shoestrings. I think lawyers are not one of those things. So if you need a lawyer that deals with contract manufacturing, then don't use an employment lawyer, use a contract manufacturing lawyer. I'm just trying to be very practical because I feel like, I didn't get such practical advice. So I want to be super helpful. I would say also raise a bit more money than you think you'll need, because chances are you will. Don't wait until the last minute to raise the money. Raising money, and I don't whether you take it from friends and family or you use your own or you go to a VC, raising money takes a long time. So there's that. Um, and I would say, you know, never lose what makes you different. I think when you enter an industry, whether you know something about it or not, as an entrepreneur, you have to make decisions about what rules are you going to follow and what rules are you going to break. And there are certain rules you have to follow or you're just not going to be successful. But you're not going to be successful if you don't break a few rules too. So, writing down on a list the rules you're going to follow, the rules you're going to break, make some up along the way, that is very good advice.
That is really good advice. This has been so much fun. It went, like, super fast.
It did go fast. No, it's been great, and there's nothing I enjoy more than speaking to entrepreneurs. I do hope it's helpful to someone.
Oh, it's super helpful. Thank you so much, Gail. What a pleasure.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure.
So thanks again to our sponsors, Dell, Oracle, and Square. And a reminder to keep an eye out for our next episode of C-Suite to Main Street. Thanks again. So great being with you. Bye, everyone.